Rev up your engines! Customer just bought this Dodge for $3,000. It's a flex fuel and it's running a bit off. You can feel when it's going uphill, medium speeds, kind of a little herky-jerky motion. A lot of it feels like transmission to me, but this is a flex fuel. You can run ethanol in it if you want. Very complex system. It can run on any amount of ethanol in the gasoline, from the 10%, which regular gas has at the pump, to E85, that's 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. We're going to need the computer on this one. There's just too much computer interfaces on a system like this flex fuel, to do any guesswork. So we're going to go to intelligent diagnosis. This particular Dodge is a 2017, so it's got a lot of computer stuff on it. Unfortunately, it was made by Fiat Chrysler when the quality started going down, but you got to deal with what you got. So we'll do the smart scan and see what happens. See, we got a lot of bad news here. We got a lot of reds. Front door module, who cares? So maybe the windows don't work right or something. That's not going to make the car run odd. Front fog lamp switch circuit stuck. We don't care about that either. The fog lamps aren't going to make the car run bad. So let's go down here. 5 codes. Power switch, heating, integrated power module. Now the ECU did reset itself. Let's look at this. Check that recovery data. It happened at 117,250 miles. Now it's got 134,000 miles, so that was a while ago. And that was before the guy bought the vehicle, so I'm assuming whoever worked on it, he only paid $3,000, so obviously they reset stuff. So that's probably not something to worry about. And we'll check the last red data. Power liftgate chime, who cares about that? That's not the problem. It's running a little off. Let's check the computer. There's no codes, but that doesn't mean anything. We're gonna look at misfire and OBD monitors. So we'll look at some data here. It's not having to adapt too much. That's relatively normal. You can see it passed the test. Now, since these are so complex, let's try cleaning the phasers. Doing its thing. Let's do the intake phaser cleaning. That was bank 1, now we'll do bank 2. As you can see, these are very complex machines. You need a computer like this if you're going to be serious about any of these modern cars. Variable valve timing, flex fuel, everything's run by computers. You need a computer to work on. Now, it's got a lot of miles. Things are probably worn inside. Going to do a cam crank relearn. Now, I've also reset the adaptive memories. Over time, who knows what's been done to this thing, if anybody's ever reset it. So we'll go back to factory settings here. The tranny did feel a little wonky, going 20, 30 uphills like it was hunting for gears. Let's check the transmission. Second to third seem to be the weird ones, so we'll try this. We'll also do it third and fourth gears. Those are the gears that seem to act the wonkiest. It had a definite thump going into third. Let's try fourth. That also had a bit of a clunk. And just to make sure, we'll go back to first gear test. No clunk. So basically, the transmission is probably worn a bit inside. Third and fourth gear especially. The other gears didn't give the clunk in this test. It did. So now we got our computer on record, and we're going to take it for a road test. Then we'll compare it. Now the computer's going to record all the data while we drive it, and I can compare it. Now I do have to say it's running better already. Maybe some of that cleaning we did, the phasers helped. Going to give us some pretty good data now. Well, it's definitely not hunting for gears like it did before. Maybe not the transmission. These things are so complex with all the variable valve timing, the cam phasers, the fact that it runs on flex fuel. The computer does a lot of stuff. We'll analyze it now that we're back. Look at the raw data. Alright, now we have a file name for our little movie we've made. We will go to our Think Files. There's the Chrysler. And what we want is the data stream playback. And here we go. What we're going to start with is 4 at a time, because it can do 4 graphs at a time. Combine graphs. And now we're going to play it back. Now what we're looking at now is the firing of the fuel injectors. What you basically want is they all sort of follow each other along. And you can see it's relatively close what it's following. It's never going to be perfect, as you can see here. As you can see in the graph, there's no radical drop-offs of one's worse than the other. So those 4 fuel injectors are fine. And we'll compare the other 4 to each other. Combine graph, and away we go. As you can see, they pretty much follow each other along, so the injectors aren't the problem. So let's check some transmission info. And we'll fast forward the data, and you can see the transmission data. It's all a straight line until the very end when we put it into park. And once we put it into park, of course, it goes from open to close. It's going to close all the valves because you're not driving it anymore. It's in park. It opened the valves because the transmission wasn't in drive anymore. It wasn't driving. So all that stuff's working like it's supposed to. So interestingly enough, I've been a mechanic for 53 years. When I first drove this vehicle, it felt like it was hunting for gears, but it doesn't seem to be the transmission was doing that. If you get a problem in the engine management system, especially when you're going uphill on a bigger load, if it starts changing, it's going to make it feel like it's going through gears because it's kind of pulsating. But in this case, it wasn't the transmission. I think that doing the cleaning process and resetting the parameters fixed this thing. It's old. No one's probably ever done any of that on it. He only paid $3,000 for it. He paid $3,000 for a car that has millions of dollars of technology built into it. So, of course, don't expect perfection as they get older like that with all this technology. But at the same time, since it had no check engine light on, it didn't trip any codes, because the problems that it had were minor codes. If something's off 5, 8%, you're going to feel it as a human being. But the computer is programmed not to trip any codes till it gets to 15, 20, 25% off. So it's not going to make a check engine light on, but you can feel it. And this is how you diagnose those things. If you remember the data I showed, the second to third and third to fourth shifts are a little bit off. The automatic clutches are off. So watch this. We're going to put it in manual shifting mode and watch what happens. Shifted to second. Now second to third and third to fourth were the problems, but third, no problem, no juddering. Fourth, no problem, no juddering. As these complex transmissions age, they're set for gas mileage, and they'll often shift to a higher gear a little too early. You're going uphill, they'll judder while they're kind of going between third and fourth or second and third. If you put it in a manual mode, bypassing all that computer stuff. So look, we want to go down, instantaneous, want to go up, no juddering, and we're going up a hill. So really, if a little juddering bothers you, just give up, take it out of drive, and put it in a manual mode and shift it yourself. Now realize, the automatic mode is made for good gas mileage. If you shift it to manual mode, you'll get a lot worse gas mileage because the computer is shifting it really early to get good gas mileage. But if you want a little more power, hey, just put it in a manual mode. Shift it to the gear you want. Here we're in second gear. You want to take off and you think it's going to shift too early, it will in automatic, but here, it'll shift whenever you want. There we go, and we're getting no juddering. Understand, you got a Dodge product with 135,000 miles. So don't expect perfection in the shifting in an automatic transmission made for high gas mileage. But like I said, you put it in manual mode, it's not having any problems at all. A lot of guys will just say, hey, I like driving it that way. But at the same time, if you're lazy and you don't mind a little jiggling when you're going between second and fourth, especially uphill, you live with that stuff. These things are so complex. They have so many different graphs that the computer looks at when it decides when to shift gears, up, down, line pressure. It's so complex. You'd live with a little jiggling or shift it manually. You got the choice. For a $3,000 van, hey, he's getting his money's worth out of it. Unlike the original owner who paid over $30,000 for this car, and that was just in 2017. That was only 4 years ago. Can anyone say horrible resale value? And here's some bonus questions and answers. Honda says, I got 07 Honda hybrid and had PO 420. It came on, I went to Walmart, got a scanner, turned it off. 2 days later, the check engine light came back on. Car works fine. What should I do? Okay, that code means that your catalytic converter is working inefficiently. Doesn't mean all that much. The car runs okay, you can live with it. It's probably not going to hurt anything. It just means that it's running at less than 95% efficiency. I've had customers driving years away. I had one customer that drove his Toyota 4 years that way, and at the 5th year, the light went off, and he didn't do anything to the car. The only thing he did was he went from buying Exxon gas to buying Shell gas. It turned out the Shell gas burnt better than the Exxon, so then the catalytic converter went back to working at close to 100% efficiency. The light went off. The only hassle is you got to get your car inspected if you're in a state that does emissions inspecting. Now, if you're in a state that doesn't do emission inspecting, you don't even care. As long as it runs okay, doesn't overheat, gets the same gas mileage, you don't hear a rattling noise from the catalytic converter falling apart inside, you can drive it that way for a long time. It's not going to really hurt anything. If your catalytic converter really goes bad, your temperature gauge will start raising up. You won't be able to go as fast. Sometimes it'll be a lot more sluggish as it heats up, as the heat builds up inside and the clogged cat plugs up even more, because when it gets hot, it expands and it can clog stuff up more. So, you'd notice the difference if it was really bad. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.